Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 6th, 2022 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. Welcome back if you haven't been to City Hall in the last,
2 years?
20 years or so. We were back, I think, for the first time 2 weeks ago, and so it's feeling good to be back. So welcome back, everybody else. First up is the approval of our minutes from March 16th, 2022. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of March 16th, 2022 as read into the record.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes
I'm going to
unanimously.
abstain.
Oh, you're going to abstain?
Yes, I'm going to abstain.
Okay, because you weren't here.
I wasn't here.
All
I
right.
did read, but I still want to abstain.
Fair enough. So that
Okay.
passes 401 for the record, whoever's keeping that. Next up is a record plat agenda, and we have one tonight for subdivision plat RP 9210-2022, Lot 15, Block L in Deer Park. This is for the Wawa site. Kirk, are you doing that, or?
I was. You kind of took my thunder, but yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But good evening.
Go
It's good to see
ahead.
all of you in person as well. Yes, so as you mentioned, we do have a plat. It's the Wawa plat, and it is ready for your approval.
All right, any questions?
And signature in person.
Yeah, how about that? And then more of the little VeriSigns. All right, any questions on that?
No.
All right, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the record plat as presented.
Second?
So moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Next up is a recommendation to the mayor and city council. Kirk, you're going to do this too, right?
Yes, I
You
am.
want to read it into the record, or should I?
I mean, you can go ahead and do it.
Okay.
That's what you get for asking.
Recommendation to the mayor and city council for SK-9174-2022 sketch plan for the Stevenson and Metgrove properties, proposing a maximum of 287 dwelling units and associated open space and amenities in the MXD mixed-use development zone. Again, it's a recommendation of the mayor and city council. Presenting from staff is Kirk Eby, and I will mention that I was not at the joint public hearing, but have read the record and know where things stand in terms of that information. So please continue.
Okay, thank you. And tech team, if we could bring up the presentation, that would be great. While it's going, again, good evening, and again, it's good to see all of you here in person. So as mentioned, this is a recommendation on sketch plan application SK-9174-2022, which is for the Stevenson Metgrove property. The Mayor and City Council and Planning Commission held a joint public hearing on February 22nd, 2022, and there were 7 speakers from the public. The Commission's record closed on April 25th at 5 p.m. with a total of 66 exhibits.
Yeah.
So this is an aerial that shows the location of the property, and it is north of the CSX Railroad, east of the existing Parklands community and the unbuilt urban core of the Watkins Town Center, south of the city-owned land, west of the county vehicle recovery facility, and 3 privately owned parcels that kind of stretch along Metropolitan Grove Road. As outlined during the joint public hearing, the sketch plan proposes to construct up to the 287 dwelling units of various types on approximately 18.25 acres of undeveloped land, along with the associated amenities and other features. So in response to comments received during the public hearing, the applicant submitted a supplemental statement, which is exhibit number 64. The statement highlights the pedestrian connectivity shown in a new circulation plan, reiterates that the proposed density is similar to the existing Parklands community and lower than the previous approvals for the Stevenson property and the portion of the urban core that is included in this application. It notes that the new housing will support the existing jobs and commercial uses that are existing in the area, as well as those that are proposed for the future urban core, and emphasizes that the next level of review, the schematic development plan, will more fully explore and address noise, traffic, and parking concerns that were expressed. At this broader sketch plan level, the applicant has stated that while they can't do very detailed analysis, they are committed to building the Town Center Boulevard in response to some of the traffic concerns, which will provide an additional access point. They will also meet or exceed the city's parking requirements, and they will be providing on-street parking, which could be used for residents, guests, visitors, and deliveries. The applicant has also submitted a revised sketch plan, which is exhibit number 65. The revised plan incorporates the location of the 2 proposed urban core roads, which are shown on that development's approved schematic development plan. And of course, those 2 roads do feed into this extended Parkview Avenue, as shown this part because I can actually use the mouse now to show this area here. And there were no other changes made to the sketch plan, so it was really just to update and sort of reflect what was talked about at the joint public hearing with the urban core moving forward. And this is the new circulation plan, which is exhibit number 66, and that was created in response to comments from the commission during the joint public hearing. So on this plan, you can see that the vehicular streets with adjacent sidewalks are being shown in blue. The off-street pedestrian and bicycle paths are shown in the red dots there, and then the pink arrows, those show potential future connections, which could either be vehicular with an adjacent sidewalk or bike and pedestrian only paths. And the applicant further notes in their supplemental statement that the pedestrian connectivity to the MART train station will be maintained as part of this project. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council on the sketch plan application. And as a reminder, this is the first step in a multi-step development review process which will precede any actual construction. So after this stage, of course, will come the schematic development plan and then one or more final site plans. So there'll be plenty of additional opportunity for review and comment by the public and commission and council. So staff is supportive of the application and recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the applicant's testimony, the evidence in the record, and the findings presented in the staff analysis, recommend approval of sketch plan amendment SK-9174-2022 to the Mayor and City Council with no conditions. And staff is available to answer any questions.
Craig, I do this every time we're going through an SDP, but just again for the record, for everybody listening, please describe what vests with the sketch plan and then what would still be open for approval or deliberation at the SDP level. So unit counts, road locations, just kind of go down what.
Right, and I'll ask Mr. Frank Johnson to jump in if I say something incorrect. But I believe the sketch plan, there's not really anything vested until SDP. Is that correct, Frank? Mm-hmm. For the most part. So this is really just
the SDP has to be consistent with the sketch plan, so that in terms of the general density here, the 287. If it's at odds with that, there'd have to be some reason for that, because it is required to be consistent, but the details do come at the SDP stage.
Okay, it can be fewer units, just not more.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Or it could be more if it's not a substantial change.
Right.
That would be accurate.
Right, and then of course in terms of the actual sketch plan itself, the general block layout, the general location of the townhouses or the unit types, I should say, and the heights, things like that, the general location of where green space was sort of envisioned and amenities, that would still have to be consistent at the SDP level as well, and roads, road network, things like that.
Fair enough. To be clear though, I'm just trying to make sure everybody understands, whatever's shown on this plan is not a by right development concept yet, and it wouldn't be until we got to the SDP level.
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioners, since you were involved in the discussion during the joint public hearing, any questions or follow-ups and to what's been?
No, it's very straightforward. Thank you to the applicant for moving the little dotted arrows around for me. That was very nice of you. It's a small concession, but I think how the pedestrian connections move through this property is going to be pretty important, and especially with slightly lower density on this property, I think the green areas become really important, and how you move, frankly, from the wooded area to the tracks is, I think, something that's going to be a wonderful thing to work through. It'll be a lot of fun to design how kids and people can move through the property and enjoy what's going to end up being a decent amount of green space on the property. So.
Great. Anything else?
Yeah, I think the only other, it's not really a comment on the application per se, but on some of the public comments that were submitted, the email comments that were submitted. I think there were some obviously who thought that this should not be anything, which obviously is an issue for the rights of the property owners who own the property. But beyond that, most of the comments I saw from the public were focused around traffic, around construction traffic, around access to the site. I think to the earlier discussion about what vests at this stage versus the next stage, the full, I think it's important for everyone on the public to understand that the burden of analysis and sort of validation from a traffic planning standpoint and analyzing this development's impact on adjacent roadways, there is a heavy burden that the applicant bears to analyze that and demonstrate impacts at the later phases. So, by moving this forward, or if we vote to make a recommendation, it's not negating any of those concerns. It's not signing off on any of those concerns. There is a time in the process that will be the focus of the discussion. It's just not now.
All of the APFO, right? So
Yeah.
Schools,
Yeah,
schools,
right.
sewer, water.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, and I think even more to the point, and since our record's closed, we can bring this up. There was a response, I think, from the applicant's team about the intention for the urban core plan, the next phase for that. And what we know is that part of what SDP will be about, and probably one of the primary concerns, is how do these really knit together? Because we don't know yet, and they need to really understand how traffic is going to get on and off the site. But that will be an SDP for sure item we can really shake down.
Yeah,
All right.
with a very gentle warning that, first person in gets to pick the curb cuts, right? So there's a danger there for your neighbors that, they don't coordinate with you properly. There's going to be a bust, right? So coordination is going to be critical.
They can pick the color of the concrete, they can, yeah?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, very good. Any other questions, comments? All right, so staff is, do you want to read the recommendations?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think I had read it. But yes, staff does recommend that the planning commission recommend approval to the mayor and city council for application SK-9174-2022
Okay, thanks. Is there a
with
motion?
no conditions.
Okay, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the planning commission, based on findings presented herein, the applicant's testimony, and the evidence in the record, recommend approval of sketch plan SK 9174-2022 to the mayor and city council with no conditions.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thanks very much, Kurt.
Thank you.
Applicants, the team from the applicants' side of the world there. Next up is our site plan agenda. We have one tonight for SP-9224-2022, reapproval of site plan for 26,600 square foot Megamart Grocery Store at 33 Dalamar Street in the C2 General Commercial Zone. And this is a final site plan, and Caroline Seiden is presenting from staff. Hello again, Caroline, and welcome back. And
Good evening.
Good to
Nice
see everybody in person again.
Staff is before you tonight to present final site plan application SP 9224-2022. The subject property is located at 33 Dalamar Street, which is formerly 7 Dalamar, they're both labeled here, and the confronting surface parking lot, which is labeled as 4 Dalamar Street. One is in the CD zone, and the parking lot is, the 33 Dalamar is in the C2 zone, and the parking lot is in the CD zone. They are both accessed from Dalamar Street with the agricultural center to the south and west, the Forest Oak Cemetery to the east, Dalamar Street Apartments to the north and west, and some other commercial uses to the north. The original site plan, SP 7932-2018, for the Megamart Grocery Store properties was approved by the Planning Commission on March 6th, 2019. The Planning Commission granted a one-year extension of the final site plan at its February 4th, 2021 meeting, and the site plan expired on March 6th, 2022. Therefore, the applicant has submitted a new final site plan seeking reapproval of the previously approved plans. The applicant is requesting to construct a new 26,600 square foot grocery store on the site of the former 22,500 square foot Golden Bull restaurant. And a demolition permit was issued for the Golden Bull back in 2017, and the building has since been demolished. Here tonight to present the application and to answer any questions is Jeff Fuller from DNC Architects and the engineer Andy Bradshaw of JBA Associates. There are also 2 parking waivers associated, so at the end there'll be 2 separate motions. So I will turn it over to Jeff.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Fuller, DNC Architects, also located here in Old Town Gaithersburg. This project has gone on for a long time for us. My daughter was 6 when we first started working on this. She's 12 now. As Carolyn said that when she was 9, we got site plan approval. We went through historic district approval a little before that. We got demolition permit. We went through a building permit. We actually did some GPR studies in the graveyard adjoining to make sure that as we're putting in our retaining wall, we're not disturbing our neighbors. And good news is we found nobody close, so we feel pretty safe about that. Really can go through in as much detail or as quickly as you want. This has been before you in the past, so I don't want to belabor it, but I'd be glad to sort of walk through generally what we have here.
Sure, and if you would mind, just preface it with why the schedule's been protracted and why the site plan expired?
There's a number of reasons. I think the largest one, I think the largest reason, quite frankly, is when they bought this property, they still had a lease in the adjoining across the street, and they did not want to terminate that lease too early. They had some fairly significant legal ramifications early on. They thought they were going to go ahead, and then they sort of backed out of it. And then at the end of this was sort of COVID slowed down. The contractor's been hired for the last year and a half. He's been sort of treading water. We've got steel and things like that are all pre-ordered. We do have a building permit that's active, even though we don't have an active site plan. So we're pretty much ready to go as soon as we can get this cleaned up.
Okay, great.
But it was certainly nothing that the city did and nothing that was really internal to the client in terms of their decision-making process.
Fair enough. Okay, great.
Megamart, as this plan shows, this is from 3 years ago, as a regional grocery store. They cater to the Hispanic community. They now actually go from sort of Alexandria all the way up to Baltimore, so they've continued to expand. They go up to Frederick. They wanted to move out of their existing facility because it's too small. It's about a 13,000 square foot facility. They didn't like sort of being buried back behind the 7-Eleven, and they sort of got a bad reputation for some of the workers that hang out in front of it that people blamed were on their side. So they were looking for new space. They found the Golden Bull was a good opportunity. Unlike most of my developer clients, they paid cash for this property and have owned it now for 6 years. So it's they're not in for the quick money on this. This is something that they're in for the long term and trying to make it work out. Just click to move. Basically, the site shows here the existing Megamart. This is missing the fact that there's a bakery sort of right around the corner from where the current Megamart store is. But basically, the bakery and everything will be in one new shopping center over here across the street. This is when the Golden Bull was still there. I won't go back in history to the days of Trudy when she described when it still was a skating rink. I didn't go back that far. It was only Golden Bull for me, but anyhow, it's the location. The Golden Bull is now gone. This shows the basic plan for the property. We had actually started with the idea of potentially having the store further up towards 355, but actually found out that the circulation worked a lot better and we worked better with grades if we pushed the building towards the Ag Center. And so the building has been pushed down to the west or southwest end of the property. The store faces onto Dalamar Street as well as into the parking area adjoining it. One of the unique things about Megamart is they have this free ride home policy. Basically, a number of their customers are dropped off and basically somebody shops and then they're given a ride home afterwards. So that's been one of the things that's been a major contributor to not needing as much parking as many of the locations might have. We've gone through a lot of the circulation studies and the way the site is set up, how cars come in and out. We do have the lot across the street that's available to people for overflow parking. We do have the loading area down against the Ag Center, and we feel pretty confident that those turning movements will all work. This is the retaining wall I mentioned before. Basically, the retaining wall is being placed 1 foot off of the edge of our property line. We were concerned as to, it's a very old cemetery, and at times people were not that accurate where they place bodies, or caskets or whatnot, but basically we did hire somebody who was a specialist and spent a lot of time surveying battlefields in the Civil War, battlefields in Virginia, and he came through and confirmed that there was nothing close to the property line. This is being built as a zero wall, so we do not have to go back. We do not have any kind of tiebacks or anything like that. So there's a precast retaining wall that's all being built on our property. On top of the wall, we do have a screen wall. This is going to replace the chain link fence that's there. The city had wanted it, but also, quite frankly, the client did as well. They felt that there's some superstitions within some of their clientele, and they did not want to have sort of a visual access into the adjoining cemetery. We do have screened areas for the cart storage, both across the street as well as in front of the store, or transformer. They take the approach way back, again, before I was with DNC. We did work for Toys R Us, and Toys R Us had this idea of making their stores look inexpensive. And Megamart has somewhat the same idea. They want things to look like they're inexpensive to make people believe they're getting deals. So this is not a high-end, this is not a really Harris Teeter type of a store. The quality is good, but what they want it to look like, it wants to be down and dirty.
Well, I mean, give yourself more credit than that. It doesn't look down and dirty.
Right, exactly.
We've seen applications that are
Right.
down and dirty. That's
Okay.
not them.
I mean, it's not exactly crystal chandeliers, but it's not a naked light bulb either.
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. Detail of the retaining wall. The grade at the cemetery is about 7 feet above the parking lot as we cut back into the hillside. The existing Golden Bull actually formed a retaining wall, or the back wall of the Golden Bull actually formed a retaining wall against the cemetery. So as that comes down, we have to build this in. So as I said, the new retaining wall is basically set into piles and goes straight down, will not have any require us to go back onto their property. The store does have a small mezzanine. The mezzanine is just for offices. It is not an area for the public. It's like a lot of food stores. Things are hidden upstairs. So that's sort of not completely thorough, but a quick overview of the property. But as I said, we've been here before on it, and hopefully it makes sense to you. If you have any questions, be glad to answer them and go into as much detail. You can let Andy talk as much as he wants to, but since I've covered the civil so far.
Yeah, I remember it from before. It's a good project.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to revisit one quick thing, because I forgot to look at it in the packet. If you wouldn't mind showing the site plan with the traffic movement diagram.
How do I go backwards on this?
And try to zoom in if you can, kind of at the end where Dalamar gets to the gate for the fairgrounds.
So probably do the loading on that one.
It just, I guess, remind me and remind us in general, the relative position of the gate that's there and what you're showing for, or assuming for your diagrams for traffic.
We're not going over the gate. There is an old easement that sort of runs on the edge of the ag center that goes both north or
Yeah,
west
can you
of the
just
northwest.
zoom in on that little intersection there, that area of the site?
Zoom in. Oh. I don't remember how to zoom in on this, so I apologize.
Oh, no problem. It's been a while.
So the gate that's there is past where the truck turnaround is working to. The other thing I didn't mention from a traffic and standpoint, we are putting in 3 new streetlights on Dalamar because it's sort of dark down at that end of the street. Also didn't mention that we're putting in a new traffic signal at the intersection of Dalamar and 355.
Perfect.
Right.
Okay, so on this diagram, where the red tracking is for the truck on the left-hand side, you're saying the gate is well to the left of that?
That's correct.
Okay.
The gate's on their property.
Yeah, that's the property line you're showing the truck going up to. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
I think there's a couple things out there.
There's a little monument entrance
Yeah,
there.
post or something.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. Any questions?
Question, I don't know whether this is I think this is more a question for staff. I noticed one of the conditions was that applicant to work with SHA on adding a signal at Dalamar and 355. When I looked into the reporting packet, the traffic impact analysis and the signal warrant analysis, granted it's from 2018, but it said that that intersection, based on the study at least, did not warrant a traffic signal. Can you
We've had some contention
give us
on
some
that.
Great
some
point.
history there?
Yeah, so the traffic study did conclude that they did not need a signal there. However, at the time of the concept plan, there was a condition of the concept plan that the city get a study, or not a study, but interest from State Highway Administration to have their feedback. And they came back, and then the city also had a consultant, both of whom came back with a different opinion on that and determined that they did meet the signal warrants. So that became a condition of the final site plan.
Was there an analysis as part of those various studies on the impacts of that signal, on the impacts of any additional signal as it ripples down 355? And maybe it's in the packet and I missed it, but that jumped out at me as, 355 routinely backs up at the signals that are there now. And I'm just curious whether we've looked beyond this.
Actually, the study did address the fact that actually on 355, in particular, sort of between the two signals, there's not as much gap as people would like to have. And so consequently, adding the signal should actually improve a lot of other turning radiuses. And at one time, we were hoping to try to find some other participants because a new signal that is going in at this location on a 20,000 square foot store is a relatively onerous contribution. But it's been agreed to and it's over and done with, and the design is done and construction will probably start in a couple months.
Can I follow up on that question? Is this going to be pedestrian activated or is it going to be sequential as far as the signal goes?
No, I believe it's a full sequential.
Full sequential, so it's
Yeah.
not going to be, okay, because
No.
pedestrian activated would make a little bit more sense, because I believe in the initial hearings, we said that, or it was presented that there weren't going to be that many pedestrians crossing over 355 because of the kind of service that the Megamart provides for people to actually drive or be driven back. So just curious as to how that evolved.
The fair had a lot to do with it. The fair uses,
The fair.
the fairgrounds
That's a good
has a
point.
lot of pedestrian connection, and there's a safety issue that has been brought up from that standpoint.
So then pedestrians will be able to cross over and then go down Dalamar to enter into the fairgrounds during the fairground. Okay, that's good.
All right.
Great.
Any other questions? We're technically in a new site plan cycle here, so I need to at least acknowledge and let people know that if they want to comment on this and they're online, and I text staff, I don't see anybody logged in, but why don't you go ahead and play the video, please?
Good evening. If you connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
All right, great, thank you. So let's do this. I'll give it a minute to see if anybody does raise their hand, but in the meantime, Caroline, why don't you go ahead and wrap up with the recommendation?
So there are two recommendations, one for the site plan and then one for the parking waivers. Staff recommends the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, the staff report, staff findings, and staff recommendation, grant SP 9224-2022, final site plan approval, finding it in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-171 of the City Code with two conditions. And the second recommendation, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, the staff report, staff findings, and staff recommendation, grant parking waivers of sections 24-218E and 24-219B of the city zoning ordinance for a drive aisle waiver and a waiver of 19 parking spaces respectively, finding them in conformance with section 24-222A.
All right, great, thank you. Any questions on the recommendation? Nope. All right, and tech team, if I'm understanding the screen right now, there's nobody who has raised their hand.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So with that, let's move us into discussion and bring this to some conclusion. I think this is a great project, and I'm sorry you've run into some hurdles to get out of the ground, but it sounds like you're back on track, so that's good news. And I don't see any real concerns with moving forward, but please, anything?
I just remember the original, when they came to us, I was so excited about the whole home delivery thing. I just thought that was just such a nice
Free ride home.
old,
The people.
old type. Yeah, right, exactly. I just thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
My hope is that your daughter is not driving before this project is over. with.
Quite right. She's entering preteen age.
All right. Any other concerns?
No, I think really the only thing we worked out last time of any substance was the traffic.
Traffic,
Pedestrian
exactly.
traffic, and while I I'm no traffic engineer and have no intention of ever being one, it's I think,
Traffic thanks you for that.
yeah, right, okay. But I think it's a little bit weird, like the whole situation is just a little bit odd. I mean, really to Phil's point, just how things stack up in there is odd. So I'm kind of curious about how this intersection is going to turn out. And if we have, future improvements, we need to get those other two parcels developed and get there.
Well, at the intersection of Dalamar and Frederick Avenue, there's the BRT thing coming, right? That could affect how the center lanes work and some of that. Is that right, or is that still moving forward?
It's, 355 BRT is still moving forward from my understanding,
Yeah.
and it would have some potential impacts on the intersections.
Yeah, once they figure out the
It's
lanes,
funded,
the
right?
express lanes.
Why
and all.
wouldn't you do it if it's funded, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, my point is though that will then
Yeah.
change the dynamic of what happens at the light for timing and for configuration anyway. So, if something's not quite working, that's another crack at
That's the time.
sorting it out.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's encouraging, actually. Good point.
All right.
And I also remember the care that you all were utilizing with the precast wall. I really appreciate you taking into consideration culture. I really like that you all are just not trying to just build a building, but you're thinking about who's going to be affected by that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, nicely done all the way around.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments? All right, we have two motions proposed from staff. The first is for the site plan itself, and the second is for some waivers on the parking. So is there a motion on the first component?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, applicant's testimony, staff report, staff findings, and staff recommendation, grant SP 9224-2022 Megamart Grocery final site plan approval, finding it in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-171 of the city code with the two conditions as presented in the record.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, and then we have a recommendation for parking waiver.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, the staff report, staff findings, and staff recommendations, grant parking waiver of sections 24-218E and 24-219(b) of the city zoning ordinance for a drive-out waiver and a waiver of 19 parking spaces respectively, finding them in conformance with section 24-222A of the city code.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much,
Best
gentlemen, for being
wishes.
here tonight.
We'll note one thing, this is an all home-cooked project. We've got architect, engineer, and contractor all from the city of Gaithersburg.
Good to hear.
Wow.
That's great.
Wow.
All right, well,
I'm
Brett,
at 205 North Frederick, so I'm curious about the light too. Every
Yeah,
day.
all three of you are gonna have to drive through that.
Oh,
line.
goodness.
let us know when the grand opening is.
Yeah, really.
Look forward to being there.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you, Caroline.
All right, so that takes us to from the commission. Danny, may I start with you?
Sure. It's wonderful to be back in this space with my esteemed colleagues. But the thing that I really missed the
Wait,
most,
there's a but?
I really missed the most was the train. It was really nice to hear the train. So
Yeah, sure.
I'm happy to be back after 2 years with my colleagues.
Yes, indeed. And pretty soon we'll be in new quarters.
Yeah,
if all
new
goes as
digs,
planned.
right.
Yeah. All right, Matt, I think tonight.
All right, I'll add to Danny, but add that it wasn't bad rolling off the couch and going to the commission. So, but happy to be here with you guys. Nothing from me.
Always keeping it real, aren't you?
Yeah.
Phil, anything, Tom?
Nope, nothing for me.
Floyd?
Nothing, thank you.
No? All right. Frank, anything from your corner of the world?
No, but thank you for asking.
Okay. Greg, what do we got going on?
Just a reminder, the next planning commission meeting is April 20th.
Okay,
Cool.
I think we've got it on our calendars.
You do, yes.
And you have me down as absent.
I do,
I'll be
yes.
down. Okay, great. We're going to ULI.
Sounds good. All right, well, if there's nothing else, have a good evening and we're adjourned.
Okay.
I have seen it all in paper dreams. I watched it unfold on the screen.